Hello, you're watching the interview here on France 24. I'm Douglas Herbert. It happened in the United States, and now French authorities fear it may be about to happen right here in France as well. Alarmed by allegations that Russia meddled in America's recent presidential election, France's foreign minister warned Russia this week against trying to get up to the same mischief here in France. And their real fear is that Russia will try to tilt the election towards right-wing parties who are buddy-buddy with Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin. Now, my guest today is Neera Tanden, and she shares these fears, and she wrote about them in an article this week in France's Le Monde newspaper. Now, Tanden's the president and CEO of the Center for American Progress. That's a liberal-leaning think tank based in Washington, D.C. She's also a longtime confidant, ally of Donald Trump's defeated opponent, Hillary Clinton. And she joins me today from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Neera, for being here.
It's great to be with you.
I want to ask you about the article you wrote, obviously, but I just also want you to, briefly mention and to tell our viewers, you yourself, this is not some abstract warning and concept for you. You yourself, you weren't directly involved in Hillary Clinton's campaign, but you're her friend, and your emails were hacked. They were leaked. You know from whence you speak when you talk about this stuff.
Yes. What essentially happened in our country is that the Hillary Clinton campaign was the target of attacks, and John Podesta, its campaign chair, was hacked, and his emails from over a decade were released. And he's a friend and mentor, and was the previous president of the Center for American Progress. So I had a lot of emails in that leaking that WikiLeaks put out day in and day out of our campaign, of Hillary's campaign. And so I had emails, private thoughts, friends talking that went around the globe. And it was an incredible violation of privacy. But really, what was most concerning about it is that those private emails were weaponized in our campaign, used against Hillary every single day, and I believe contributed to her loss.
And Neera, this is interesting because now getting to that Le Monde article, a very pointed and sharp message. The French have been talking about this for a while, but coming from you, it carries some resonance. You basically are saying, watch out, France, because you guys are next. You are Vladimir Putin's next target. And you cite two candidates, one the conservative the candidate, François Fillon, and the other, the far-right candidate, Marine Le Pen. Why them in particular? Why are they the Kremlin favorites?
Because of their policies towards the Kremlin, towards Russia. Both candidates, like Donald Trump himself, are candidates who have spoken favorably, wanted to warm relations with Russia. As Russian aggression has grown, Putin is many things, but he's not stupid. He recognizes that he wants to have allies in democracies around the world who will turn a blind eye towards his actions. Donald Trump is inconsistent on almost every issue. The one area of consistency, whether it's the invasion of Crimea, whether it's Syria, whether it's the EU, whether it's NATO, he has taken the pro-Putin position, the pro-Russian position. And that is an incredibly important fact for Putin. And, he, I'm sure, saw that Hillary would be a tougher opponent, a stronger leader for the country vis-a-vis Russia. And so he put his thumb on the scale and worked to elect Trump, as our intelligence community has clearly said.
And in tandem with this, right, what you're saying is alongside trying to boost the presidential prospects of these Kremlin friends, so to speak, he's trying to sink the candidacy, you say, of the candidate who's the more centrist, the pro-European candidate, Emmanuel Macron. How do you see Russia, and perhaps it's not just Russia, but how do you see them specifically doing this?
So what they did in the United States was they weaponized information. Not only did they hack the Democratic National Committee, but as I said, they hacked into the Clinton campaign and stole information and put it, essentially distributed it around the world. And that had that really had an impact. It wasn't just that the information was out there. It was the information was used by Donald Trump every single day on the campaign. He used it to attack Hillary. And then, unfortunately, and I say this with great sadness, our media became the willing lapdogs of the Kremlin by using it, as it was on cable news every day, salacious details, which really, truthfully, put it in proper context, had no real meaning, but they were gossip that was used to attack Hillary. And if someone would say something about, something negative about Hillary, it would be blown incredibly out of proportion. And Trump used it as well. So I think the strategy, just to get to your question, the strategy that the Russian government used, and again, it's not me saying this, it's our intelligence community saying this, was to weaken Hillary Clinton to help elect Donald Trump. And I see the same thing happening in France. The Russians see one opponent to Russia's interests, it is Macron, and they are taking actions to do it. Russia Today, Sputnik News have already attacked.
I was going to ask you about
Macron.
I'm sorry to jump in. I was going to ask you specifically, because you mentioned
please.
U.S. media in the U.S. That sort of complicit or you're playing into Putin's game here. But you have Russia Today in French now, as well as Sputnik, a Russian news service, in the French language. How much of a role do you think they play? Because they're not hackers, but they're media arms. They're propaganda outlets of the Kremlin.
Absolutely. And we saw this in the U.S. So just to put it in proper context, Russia Today would drive these quote-unquote news stories that were basically propaganda against Hillary. And the Trump campaign would use that in their discussions and in their attacks. And they basically became the mouthpiece of Russia Today. And I see in France a similar thing developing where Russia Today is attacking Macron, viciously attacking Macron, but somehow very supportive of Marine Le Pen, Fillon, others. And so, and I think that's because they are doing what they can to bring down Macron, to attack him. And my greatest hope is that people can learn from what happened in the United States. The people of France can learn and not make the same mistakes, not lose sight of what's really happening here. And these attacks are actually really just the arm and the strategy of Putin to shift the French elections, to shift the European elections, to create more allies for themselves in Europe.
Neera, what do you say, to play the devil's advocate for a second here? Russia obviously had a lot at stake in the U.S. election, but come on, France is small fry. Even Germany, for Putin right now, he has other fish to fry. The payback, whatever he'll get in return, just isn't worth it. He has better things to do right now than hack into France's election.
I would say that a central question in the French elections really is the future of Europe. Vladimir Putin wants a divided Europe. It's a stated goal of the Russian government, and nothing will help that goal more. Obviously, he was very successful in the U.S., but a divided Europe, one in which France is pulling out of the EU or raising questions about NATO, nothing could be more important to Putin, in my view. And so that's why I think he is doing what he's doing. You can look at Russia Today for their editorial decisions to ask yourself whether Putin sees this as something important to do or not. And given their treatment of Macron, I think you can see that there's a real strategy here.
Neera, in the couple of minutes we have left, as I said at the beginning, you're a close friend of Hillary Clinton. You weren't directly involved this time in her campaign. How's she doing? A lot of people over here, and I also in the U.S. obviously, are asking, how's she coping? Have you spoken to her recently? What's her mood right now?
This was obviously a hard hit. I would say that, what we've seen in the election or in the post-election process here in the United States is more and more details about not only Russia's actions, but the FBI's actions in the election, which seem, there's growing evidence every day that a lot of these things swung the election. So having said that, Hillary Clinton is one of the strongest people I know. She's been through a lot. I know that she will contribute to the debate. I know that she's, she looked at the Women's March as an important march, and I'm proud of the fact that millions of people in the United States are resisting Trump or opposed to his policies and coming out on the streets in a way I haven't seen in my entire political career. So She's doing well, but she will figure out in the next few months, I think, how she will contribute to the debate going forward.
And Neera, very briefly, we're just about out of time. Do you have any idea, I mean, if she was watching Donald Trump's press conference this week in which he almost seemed like he was still campaigning against her, his allegations, she was fed questions during the debates. Does she watch that? Is she taking a sort of Trump time out for now?
I don't think she's like glued to the TV set watching Donald Trump, but I think she's more concerned about what he's doing to the country and what his policies mean and his attacks on democracy, attacks on the independent judiciary, attacks on the media. And I guess I would just end with that I hope the French people really see what's happening in the United States, not just during our campaign, but after, and recognize how important it is to step away from that possibility in France itself.
Thank you, Neera. Well, to our viewers, you've heard the warning from a woman who is at the center of the U.S. Political incidents, if you want to call it that, and a warning to the French to watch out in their own elections. Russia may be up to more mischief to come. Neera Tanden, President CEO of the Center for American Progress. Thanks for joining us from Washington, D.C. today. Thanks to all of you for watching the interview here on France 24.